Welcome back to my channel, US Rare Coins News, Top 1. Today, think about this for a moment. Somewhere in a drawer, a coin jar, or an old collection, there's a $50 that most people would casually overlook. It's not silver, it doesn't shine like gold, and it doesn't immediately scream, rare. Yet the 1972 D. Kennedy $50 carries a story that connects American history, changing money, and collector interest in a way that surprises many people. The Kennedy $50 was born from one of the most emotional moments in U.S. history. After the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, the nation wanted a lasting tribute. Just months later, his portrait appeared on the $50, instantly turning the coin into a symbol of remembrance and unity. By the time 1972 arrived, the Kennedy $50 had already become one of the most recognizable coins in America. The 1972 D. Kennedy $50 was struck at the Denver Mint, marked by the small D beneath Kennedy's portrait. This was a time when U.S. coinage was undergoing major changes. Silver had already been removed from $50 a few years earlier, and coins were now produced for everyday use rather than precious metal value. That shift alone makes coins from the early 1970s especially interesting, because they represent the transition from old-style money to modern circulation coinage. On the front of the coin, John F. Kennedy's profile is strong and dignified. The design captures his youthful energy and leadership, frozen in time just as the nation remembered him. The lettering is bold, and when the coin is well preserved, even the smallest details in his hair and facial features stand out clearly. Flip the coin over, and you're greeted by the presidential seal. The eagle spreads its wings proudly, holding arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing both strength and peace. Above the eagle, stars represent the states of the Union, reinforcing the idea of national unity. It's a powerful design that feels formal, patriotic, and timeless. Although millions of 1972 D. Kennedy $50 were minted, most of them entered circulation and stayed there. These coins passed through countless hands, vending machines, and bank rolls. Over time, they picked up scratches, dull surfaces, and contact marks that erased much of their original mint luster. That's where collector value begins to separate ordinary coins from desirable ones. Condition is everything. A heavily circulated example tells a story of everyday use, but a well-preserved coin tells a completely different story. Coins that were pulled from circulation early, saved in rolls, or stored carefully can still display sharp details and bright surfaces decades later. Another layer of interest comes from striking quality. Some 1972 D. Kennedy $50 were struck more cleanly than others. Collectors pay close attention to how sharp the lettering appears, how defined the eagle's feathers are, and whether the fields are smooth or filled with marks. Even small differences can matter when determining value. Minting quirks also add excitement. While major errors are rare, some examples show weak strikes, die wear, or minor imperfections that collectors find appealing. These variations help explain why no two coins are ever exactly the same, even when they share the same date and mint mark. The early 1970s are becoming more popular among collectors as nostalgia grows. People who grew up seeing these coins in circulation now want to own high-quality examples. This steady interest has quietly increased demand, especially for coins that stand out in condition or eye appeal. What makes the 1972 D. Kennedy $50 especially appealing is its accessibility. It's not locked away in museums or known only to elite collectors. It's a coin that regular people can still find, examine, and potentially upgrade by searching through rolls or old collections. That sense of possibility keeps collectors engaged. Now comes the question everyone asks: what is it actually worth? Most circulated 1972 D. Kennedy $50 are common and usually trade close to face value. However, uncirculated examples with strong luster and minimal marks can command much higher attention from collectors. Coins that have been professionally graded or show exceptional quality can push even further beyond typical expectations. At auction, high-grade uncirculated 1972 D. Kennedy $50 have sold for prices ranging from around $10 to over $200, depending on condition, grading, and demand at the time of sale. Top 2. Today, at first glance, it looks like just another modern $50. It's shiny, familiar, and often overlooked. But the 2000 D Kennedy half-dollar carries a story that goes far beyond its face value. This coin comes from a turning point in American money, a moment when half-dollars quietly began disappearing from everyday life, and that's exactly what makes this coin so interesting to collectors today. The year 2000 marked the beginning of a new millennium, and American coinage was already changing fast. By this time, half-dollars were no longer commonly used in daily transactions. Many people rarely saw them in circulation, and younger generations barely recognized them at all. Yet the United States Mint continued producing Kennedy half-dollars, not because people demanded them, but because they had become part of American tradition. The 2000 D Kennedy half-dollar was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark beneath Kennedy's portrait. Unlike earlier decades, most of these coins were not released into general circulation. Instead, they were primarily produced for collectors, mint sets, and special releases. This alone separates the 2000 D issue from many earlier Kennedy halves. On the obverse of the coin, President John F. Kennedy's portrait remains bold and instantly recognizable. The design has changed very little since its introduction in 1964, and that consistency is part of its appeal. Kennedy's image represents leadership, hope, and a moment in American history that still resonates decades later. On a well-preserved 2000 D example, the details in his hair, jawline, and profile appear crisp and sharp. Turn the coin over, and the presidential seal dominates the reverse. The eagle spreads its wings with authority, clutching arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing strength and peace. The stars above the eagle reflect the unity of the states, reinforcing the patriotic message that has always defined the Kennedy half-dollar. What makes the 2000 D Kennedy half-dollar especially fascinating is how few people actually used it. Many coins from this year went straight from the mint into collector packaging, meaning they avoided the heavy wear seen on older circulating halves. As a result, uncirculated examples are far more common than earlier dates, yet truly high-quality pieces still stand out. Collectors pay close attention to surface quality on these coins. Even uncirculated examples can show contact marks from mint handling, bag storage, or poor packaging. Coins with clean fields, strong luster, and sharp strikes are far more desirable than average examples pulled from sets. Another point of interest is strike quality. Some 2000 D Kennedy half-dollars were struck more sharply than others. Collectors look closely at the definition in the lettering, the clarity of the eagle's feathers, and the overall balance of the design. Subtle differences like these can significantly affect desirability. Because these coins were largely saved rather than spent, collectors often compare multiple examples to find the best possible specimen. This has created quiet competition in the market for top-quality coins, especially those that look nearly flawless under magnification. The year 2000 itself adds emotional appeal. Coins tied to milestone years often attract long-term interest, and the first year of a new millennium holds symbolic weight. For many collectors, owning coins from the year 2000 feels like capturing a historical bookmark in metal. Another reason the 2000 D Kennedy half-dollar is gaining attention is nostalgia. People who were children or teenagers in the year 2000 are now adults with disposable income, and many are returning to coin collecting. Modern coins from their lifetime feel personal, familiar, and meaningful. While the coin is not made of silver, its copper-nickel composition reflects the modern era of U.S. coinage. This makes it part of the broader story of how American money evolved away from precious metals and toward practicality and mass production. Now comes the question everyone waits for: what is it worth? Most examples remain affordable, but condition makes all the difference. Coins with average quality trade modestly, while standout examples attract real collector interest. Pieces that have been professionally graded or show exceptional eye appeal tend to perform best when collectors compete for them. At auction, high-grade uncirculated 2000 D Kennedy half-dollars have sold for prices ranging from around $8 to over $150, depending on condition, grading, and demand at the time of sale. Top 3. Today, there's a special kind of coin that sits quietly in collections, often ignored, yet deeply connected to a major turning point in American money. The 1971 D Kennedy half-dollar is one of those coins. It doesn't shout rarity at first glance, but once you understand its timing, history, and collector appeal, it becomes much more than just 50 cents. By 1971, the United States was in the middle of a dramatic transformation. Silver was gone from circulating half dollars, inflation was rising, and Americans were slowly adjusting to a new era of money. The Kennedy half dollar, first introduced in 1964 as a tribute to the fallen president, had already cemented itself as one of the most emotionally powerful coins in U.S. history. But by the early 1970s, its role was changing. The 1971 D. Kennedy half dollar was struck at the Denver Mint, marked by the small D beneath Kennedy's portrait. This was only the second year that Kennedy halves were produced entirely in copper-nickel-clad composition. That alone places the 1971 D issue in a unique position. It represents the moment when the coin fully entered the modern era. On the front of the coin, President John F. Kennedy's portrait remains strong and dignified. The design captures his calm confidence, a reminder of leadership during a turbulent time in American history. When the coin is well preserved, the fine details in Kennedy's hair and facial structure are surprisingly sharp, showing just how well this design translates even without silver. The reverse features the presidential seal, dominated by a powerful eagle with outstretched wings. The eagle holds arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing strength and peace, while stars above represent the unity of the states. It's a bold, formal design that gives the half dollar a sense of importance far beyond its face value. Although millions of 1971 D. Kennedy half dollars were minted, most of them were released directly into circulation. These coins were used in daily transactions at a time when half dollars still appeared occasionally in cash registers, banks, and casinos. As a result, many examples show heavy wear today. This is where collector interest truly begins. While circulated coins are common, finding a 1971 D. Kennedy half dollar with strong luster, clean surfaces, and minimal marks is far more challenging than most people expect. Coins from this period were often stored loosely in bags or rolls, leading to contact marks even before circulation began. Collectors closely examine strike quality on these coins. Some 1971 D halves were struck more sharply than others, and the difference is noticeable. Strong lettering, clear details in the eagle's feathers, and smooth fields can dramatically increase desirability. Another layer of fascination comes from minting characteristics. Early copper-nickel-clad coins sometimes show issues like weak strikes or uneven metal flow. While these were common for the time, collectors today appreciate examples that overcame these challenges and still look exceptional decades later. The early 1970s are becoming increasingly popular among collectors, especially those interested in transitional coinage. The 1971 D. Kennedy half dollar sits right at the intersection of old and new, no longer silver, but still carrying the weight of a design born from national mourning. Nostalgia also plays a powerful role. Many collectors today grew up seeing these coins in circulation or remember parents and grandparents saving Kennedy halves as keepsakes. That emotional connection keeps demand steady and growing, particularly for higher quality examples. What makes this coin especially appealing is that it's still accessible. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to own one, yet the search for a top-quality example can be just as exciting as hunting for rare coins. Roll searching, inherited collections, and old bank sets still occasionally reveal surprisingly nice specimens. Now comes the part everyone wants to know: what is it actually worth? Most circulated 1971 D. Kennedy half dollars trade close to face value. However, uncirculated examples with strong eye appeal, and especially those professionally graded in high mint state condition, can command much stronger interest from collectors. At auction, high-grade uncirculated 1971 D. Kennedy half dollars have sold for prices ranging from around $5 to over $100, depending on condition, grading, and collector demand at the time of sale. Top 4. Today, there's a coin that quietly represents an entire era of American change, and most people don't even realize it. The 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar doesn't flash silver or gold, and it doesn't come from a dramatic historical crisis. Instead, it tells a subtler story, one about how American money slowly faded from daily life and became something collectors would later chase. By 1986, the Kennedy half dollar had already been around for more than 2 decades. What began in 1964 as a powerful tribute to President John F. Kennedy had, over time, transformed into a coin rarely seen in everyday transactions. Cash registers no longer welcomed half dollars, vending machines ignored them, and many Americans barely remembered they existed. The 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollar was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D. Mint mark beneath Kennedy's portrait. During this period, the U.S. Mint continued producing half-dollars mainly to satisfy collectors and government demand rather than public circulation. That fact alone makes this coin especially interesting, because it marks a point where half-dollars became more collectible than spendable. On the front of the coin, Kennedy's portrait remains bold and timeless. The design still carries the same strength and dignity that first captured the nation's emotions in the 1960s. When viewed closely on a well-preserved example, the sharpness of Kennedy's hair, jawline, and facial contours reveals just how detailed this design truly is. The reverse side features the presidential seal, dominated by a powerful eagle with wings spread wide. The eagle clutches arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing readiness for defense and commitment to peace. Above the eagle, stars form a strong visual reminder of unity across the states. Even decades later, this design continues to feel formal, patriotic, and unmistakably American. The 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollar is made of copper-nickel-clad metal, reflecting the modern era of U.S. coinage. By this time, precious metals were long gone from circulating half-dollars, and coins were produced for durability rather than intrinsic value. This shift makes the coin part of a broader story about how American money evolved in response to economic realities. Although many 1986 D. half-dollars were struck, most never experienced heavy circulation. Instead, they spent their lives stored in rolls, mint sets, drawers, and collections. However, storage does not always mean perfection. Even uncirculated coins from this era can show contact marks, dull spots, or weak strikes caused by mass production methods. Collectors pay very close attention to surface quality on this coin. Smooth fields, strong luster, and crisp details can dramatically separate an average example from a standout piece. Coins with clean surfaces and bright eye appeal are far more desirable than those that appear flat or lifeless. Strike quality also plays an important role. Some 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollars show sharper details than others, particularly in the lettering and the eagle's feathers. A strong strike gives the coin depth and character, while a weaker strike can make it look flat despite being uncirculated. Another reason collectors are drawn to this coin is nostalgia. People who grew up in the 1980s often remember seeing half-dollars occasionally or hearing stories about older relatives saving them. As those collectors return to the hobby, coins like the 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollar gain renewed interest. Modern collectors also appreciate coins that represent quiet transitions. The 1986 D. half-dollar comes from a time when half-dollars were still officially produced but practically absent from daily life. That contrast gives the coin a unique identity within the Kennedy series. While it may never be considered rare in the traditional sense, the challenge lies in finding truly exceptional examples. Coins with minimal marks, strong luster, and professional grading often stand far above the rest. These are the pieces that catch attention when collectors compete. Now let's talk about the part everyone waits for, value. Most 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollars are affordable and commonly found in average condition. However, high-quality uncirculated examples, especially those graded at the top levels, can bring significantly stronger results at auction. High-grade uncirculated 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollars have sold for prices ranging from around $6 to over $100, depending on condition, grading, and collector demand at the time of sale. Top 5. Today, some coins don't just represent money. They represent a moment. A celebration. A country looking back at its past while stepping confidently into the future. The 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollar is exactly that kind of coin, and even today, it continues to fascinate collectors, historians, and everyday people who stumble across one and sense that it's different. In the mid-1970s, the United States was preparing to celebrate its 200th birthday. 200 years since the Declaration of Independence. It was a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, and the nation wanted to mark it in a way that would reach every American. Instead of creating a single commemorative medal, the U.S. Mint made a bold decision. Circulating coins themselves would honor the bicentennial. That decision gave birth to the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that immediately stood out from everything that came before it. For the first and only time in the Kennedy half-dollar series, the traditional reverse design was changed. This alone makes the bicentennial half-dollar unforgettable. The coin still features the familiar portrait of President John F. Kennedy on the front, a reminder of leadership, hope, and unity. By the 1970s, Kennedy's image had already become deeply embedded in American culture. Seeing his portrait paired with the bicentennial date created a powerful emotional connection between the nation's founding ideals and its modern history. What truly sets this coin apart is the reverse. Instead of the presidential seal, the design shows Independence Hall, one of the most important buildings in American history. This is where the Declaration of Independence was debated and adopted. The image is bold, symbolic, and instantly recognizable. It turns the coin into a miniature monument you can hold in your hand. The dual date 1776 to 1976 is more than decoration. It represents 2 centuries of struggle, growth, conflict, and progress. Few circulating coins in U.S. history carry that level of symbolism, and that's one reason the bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar remains one of the most collected modern American coins. These coins were produced in large numbers, but not all examples are equal. Many entered circulation and were used heavily, picking up scratches, dull surfaces, and worn details. Others were saved immediately as souvenirs of the bicentennial celebration, tucked away in drawers, albums, and collections. Collectors pay close attention to condition on these coins. A circulated example tells a story of everyday life in the 1970s, but an uncirculated example tells a different story, one of preservation and intention. Sharp lettering, clean fields, and strong detail in Independence Hall make a noticeable difference. Another important detail is composition. Some bicentennial Kennedy half-dollars were made for circulation in copper-nickel-clad metal, while others were struck in special compositions for collectors. This variation adds another layer of interest and keeps collectors searching for the best examples. Strike quality also matters. Some coins show crisp lines and strong detail, while others appear softer due to high-speed minting. Collectors carefully inspect the windows and roofline of Independence Hall, as well as the fine details of Kennedy's portrait, to judge overall quality. What makes this coin especially appealing is its broad audience. Serious collectors appreciate its historical importance. Casual collectors love the unique design. Even non-collectors often recognize it as something special the moment they see the dual date. Over time, nostalgia has only increased its appeal. People who grew up during the bicentennial celebrations remember fireworks, parades, and patriotic displays. Owning a coin from that moment feels personal, almost like owning a small piece of childhood memory. Despite its popularity, many people still underestimate this coin. They assume that because it's common, it has no value beyond face value. In reality, the market tells a more interesting story, especially when condition, quality, and collector demand come into play. Now comes the moment everyone waits for, the value. Most circulated 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollars are affordable and widely available. However, uncirculated examples, especially those with strong eye appeal or professional grading, can achieve much stronger results. At auction, high-quality 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollars have sold for prices ranging from around $5 to over $200, depending on condition, composition, grading, and collector demand at the time of sale. So the next time you come across a Kennedy half-dollar with the dual date 1776 to 1976, take a moment to really look at it. It's not just a coin. It's a celebration of American history, preserved in metal. If you enjoy discovering the stories and real value behind iconic coins, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into coin collecting. Thanks for watching, and happy collecting sparkles.